got no boundaries to hold me back. Boundaries is what I lack. Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Conflation Station. Hop on board the next train out, and let's take a ride to a place where anything's possible.
Hello and welcome to the Conflation Station. My name is Hugo Yorway, and I'll be your tour guide for today's podcast, including political commentary, conspiracy theories, and some cool music from the Electric Glove Orchestra. At the Conflation Station, our team of creative writers and novice journalists combine elements of irony, satire, and pure absurdity to create insightful political commentary and homespun conflated conspiracy theories taken from today's news headlines. In the first segment of our show, known as the 14th Circuit, or what I like to call the Court of Public Opinion, renowned raconteur, the Reverend Rusty Stubblefield, shares his unfiltered and unhinged views about America's constitutional, or shall I say, unconstitutional crisis. His topic this week is gun violence in America. Rusty, the microphone is all yours.
Well, thank you, Hugo. You know, when it comes right down to it, more than ever before, I've become a proponent of that there Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. You know, the right for people to have their own guns. With all those lunatic, militia, deer-hunting Republican MAGA cult radicals out there, and them there domestic terrorists, an average feller like me has got to have the ability to protect himself, his wife, and his youngins. Now, I's had guns since I's a young man. Matter of fact, when I bought me my first little farmstead in Hog Hollow, Kentucky, the local constable, Otis Driftwood, today I just call him Otis, called me to his office. It was in the parlor of his 3-room house. He had a parlor, a kitchen with a wood stove, and a bedroom. He didn't have no bathroom. He had a commode in a little wood building about 20 yards from his house. Well, at that first meeting with Constable Driftwood, he asked me if I owned a gun. I told him, no, sir, I did not. He said, son, in this here town, I's the only lawman. I can't possibly protect everyone who lives here, so you'll need a gun to protect your own self. Well then, he got up right out of his chair, left the room, proceeded to his kitchen, came back with a rifle and some ammo and said, here you go, boy. Now you got your own gun. He pulled a piece of paper that said gun license on the top of the page, put it down on his desk and said, boy, sign here. I signed it, he signed it, and then he said, now you're legal, boy. That was my ticket to legal gun ownership. I never had to use that gun to protect myself against another man, but it sure came in handy when the time came to dispatch those varmints who thought it was okay to move in with me and take up residence in the comfort of the dirt crawl spaces under my shack. Skunks, porcupines, raccoons, and an occasional coyote. I wasn't the rugged hunting type, so I's never used that rifle to shoot no deer, nor would I ever kill an innocent animal for food. I purchased my meat at the deli counter. I likes it already cured and processed, and it tastes right fine to me. Unfortunately, in our polarized, modernized, AI-promoting technological society, people is so angry with each other these days that they think it's okay to go a people hunting with these rifles. They's got some mighty powerful rifles these days that can take down a 70-foot-tall pine tree, let alone a 6-foot-tall man. These crazy folks with an axe to grind are doing the shooting at schools, churches, supermarkets, and any other place where good folk like you and me congregate. It's a sad state of affairs, and as a reverend, I pray for the safety and protection of my fellow man each and every day. Unfortunately, every time I turn on the TV, It seems like there's a new mass shooting going on somewhere in these here United States. And each and every time there's a new shooting, they's got to have a press conference to tell you what happened. But at each and every press conference, it's the same old song and dance. People as fast becoming desensitized to hearing it. All these press conferences begins with some sheriff or chief of police saying this is a horrific tragedy and that they's hearts go out to the families of them their victims. Then you's got your local mayor, county commissioner, state senator, governor, and any other politico who wants they's 15 minutes of fame going on lecturing about the evil-minded people in our society just so they's can score some political points with they's constituents. Then you's got the head cop bragging, blowing his own horn about how fast the police and them their first responders was there on the scene to get control of the situation. They think it's mighty important for us to know that they was there in less than 3 minutes. Like, who gives a rat's ass? They's dead people. It don't matter how fast you arrived on the crime scene after the killing started. Instead of bragging about they's reaction time, I would like to know what, if anything, they did to prevent this shit from happening in the first place. After that's all said and done, someone from the FBI starts a blabbering about collaboration and coordination with the local authorities. Folks, we've seen this same bad movie so many times now that we can recite it verbatim for ourselves. When all that BSing is done, now it's time for the press to ask questions. They's hollering and yelling out these questions all at the same time to get attention. And when they's asked these questions, you can't hear the damn question on the TV because there ain't no microphone in the audience for the press. And the answer them their government officials give is always the same. We don't know. Or due to the fact that this is an ongoing investigation, we can't comment. Or before we tell you, we's got to notify the next of kin. Feels like I'm watching the press conference from that there movie Jaws, where the chairman of the select board is telling them townsfolk that there ain't no sharks and the water is safe for swimming. And then, without batting an eyelash, the news media is wanting to know how many's dead and how many's injured. And last but not least, they's always wanting to know the suspect's motive for doing the killing. All of this right in the aftermath of the killing. After innocent men, women, and children being shot up, is this what we're talking about? All of these questions is irrelevant. Innocent people's been killed. It's as plain as the nose on your pretty little faces that some crazy dude with a high-powered rifle lost his mind and pulled the trigger. So why even have the damn press conference? Fact of the matter is, if there weren't no guns or no triggers to pull, they wouldn't be no mass shootings. There ain't no need to go into the sociopathological disorder afflicting the suspect. Them there gun advocates, usually them hardcore, hard-right Republicans, try to draw a false equivalence between guns and people. They say it's people that does the killing, not guns. My friends, the choice ain't binary. It ain't neither people or the guns. It's both. I would prefer to live in a society where crazy people, because let's face it, most of us is a little crazy. I would prefer to live in a society where people, crazy or not, was allowed to be these crazy selves as long as they did not have the legal right to run amok with unfettered access to guns. You know what? After thinking through this here gun conundrum, I've completely changed my mind. Given all the gun violence and killing that's going on in this here USA today, damn that there Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and those who supports it. And now, as I say at the end of each of my weekly sermons, if you and me put our pretty little heads together, we may still be able to figure out how to get this here U.S. of A. back on track. Thank y'all for listening.
Rusty Stubblefield is an unemployed certified auto mechanic and deacon at the Church of Our Lady of Original Sin. And now, it's time to take our weekly musical journey with the inimitable Electric Love Orchestra, featuring Rusty Stubblefield on vocals, in an original piece written by the world-renowned composer E. Dudex entitled Sinnin'. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with this week's Conflated Conspiracy Theories.
Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned, and I'll sin and sin again. 'Cause when you sin, you always win, and I'll do it with a grin on my face. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned, and I'll sin and sin again. 'Cause when you sin, you always win, and I'll do it with a grin on my face. Sinning is the way to winning. Sinning is the way to winning. I'll keep on sinning. I'll keep on winning. I'm unforgiving. That's how I'm living. I'll keep on sinning. I'll keep on winning. I'm unforgiving. That's how I'm living.
Thank you, Rusty, Edudex, and the Electric Glove Orchestra for creating that musical masterpiece, available online at Bearberry Path Music. In our next segment of the podcast, we'll be sharing various homegrown conspiracy theories that have been developed by our staff of creative writers and novice journalists who believe first and foremost that, at the Conflation Station, anything is possible. We invite you, our listeners, to share your own homegrown conspiracy theories by sending an email to bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com. That's bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com, and place the words conspiracy theory in the subject line. We would love to hear from you, our listeners. Today, our reporting will focus on facial hair in the United States military and President Trump's recent pharmaceutical initiative, Trump RX. In an address delivered to America's top military brass last week at the Quantico Marine Corps Base in Virginia, self-proclaimed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth vowed to purge the military of what he called, quotes, beardos. Hegseth mandated that all who serve in the United States Armed Forces be clean-shaven. Hegseth warned that those soldiers who do not comply with his directive may face possible dishonorable discharge. Hegseth stated, quote, "My new grooming standard is essential for the military's effectiveness and discipline and will contribute to a more cohesive and professional military force." End quote. In response to Hegseth's directive, Trump's former Secretary of Defense during his first term in office, General James Mad Dog Mattis, released a statement which reads as follows, quote, "The President of the United States is our nation's commander-in-chief. For all intents and purposes, the President is America's top military dog. History will show that, without question, facial hair in the form of a beard has in no way ever compromised any former commander-in-chief from leading the military. There is not even the slightest correlation between beards and battlefield performance. In point of fact, many of America's greatest commanders-in-chief had beards and or sported other forms of facial hair while holding office." End quote. Our team of novice reporters fact-checked General Mattis' statement and found that 5 of our nation's former commanders-in-chief, more than 10% of the total since George Washington, had beards. Presidents including Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses Grant, Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield, and Benjamin Harrison all had beards. In addition, a total of 6 other commanders-in-chief had some other form of facial hair. These included John Quincy Adams, Martin Van Buren, and Chester A. Arthur, who wore mutton chops. Chester A. Arthur also had a mustache, and Grover Cleveland, Theodore Roosevelt, and William Howard Taft, who all had mustaches. In total, 11 former military commanders-in-chief, or 22% of the total, sported facial hair. General Mark Milley, former head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and White House Chief of Staff during Donald Trump's first administration, said, quote, "Pete Hegseth's claim that facial hair has any bearing on battlefield performance is absolutely ludicrous. If facial hair was good enough for 11 former commanders-in-chief, it's good enough for me, end quote. General Milley referred to the fact that some of history's fiercest fighting forces sported beards, including the Mongols and the Taliban. Milley said, quote, beards present an intimidation factor that is unsurpassed when warriors engage in hand-to-hand combat. Rather than succumbing to the use of weapons of mass destruction on the battlefield, let's bring back flaming arrows and crossbows to show our adversary on every continent, including North America, what American men are really made of, with or without beards. On a separate note, 4 of our former commanders-in-chief, including Presidents Jefferson, Monroe, Madison, and John Adams, actually wore wigs. One can only imagine how Secretary of War Pete Hegseth would react to a bunch of cross-dressing, wig-wearing commanders-in-chief leading the United States Armed Forces. Accordingly, our reporters sought out Secretary Hegseth to see if he would be willing to answer that question. In his response, Hegseth said, quotes, wigs cause less of a problem in combat than beards, because wigs can always be removed at a moment's notice. If our soldiers want to wear beards, I might be open to considering that they wear fake beards, or even Groucho Marx disguises, because fake beards and Groucho Marx disguises can provide our men on the ground with excellent cover and can easily be removed. Heck, our enemies might even mistake us for Marxists. End quote. In conclusion, if Pete Hegseth does not want facial hair in the United States Armed Forces, then he should be recruiting only women to serve in the United States military. Problem solved. And now, it's time to take another short musical break to listen to another original piece composed by E. Dude X and performed by Rusty Stubblefield and the Electric Glove Orchestra, entitled Fire Island. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with another conflated conspiracy theory.
A night on Fire Island, atop a windy bluff. The sun ain't never shining, the moon it ain't enough. And there on Fire Island, it's dangerous and tough. The waves, they crash like thunder and turn the rocks to dust. Fire Island. Fire Island.
Thank you, boys and girls. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Remember, the Electric Glove Orchestra's complete catalog is available online at Bearberry Path Music. Our next story focuses on President Trump's most recent healthcare endeavor, Trump RX. Last week, in an effort to rein in the outrageous cost of prescription drugs in the United States, President Trump launched an initiative called Trump RX to help address the problem. According to our sources at the Conflation Station, Trump announced an exclusive deal with Pfizer Pharmaceuticals to sell drugs directly to consumers at discount prices. The drugs will be available for purchase online on a government-operated website called TrumpRx.gov. Trump merchandise, such as Trump gold sneakers, MAGA hats, T-shirts, and Bibles, will also be available for purchase on the same site. The Trump RX deal also gives Trump a 20% commission for the use of his name. The deal with Pfizer is allegedly going to align U.S. drug prices with those paid in other developed countries. This concept is known as most favored nation status. Trump said, quote, America has been getting screwed big time by the major drug companies. We pay for all of the research and development, and other countries, not us, reap the benefits. Under my plan, Americans now will be able to buy narcotic opioids like OxyContin and fentanyl from a reputable drug dealer like Pfizer instead of purchasing them from drug dealers who hang out on street corners or in dark alleys selling drugs that were produced in China." End quote. According to sources within the Trump administration, buying drugs online from Pfizer could result in a 50% price reduction on certain drugs. However, the price reduction will only be available to those who choose not to use their health insurance or those who go through Medicare to purchase the drugs. Since Medicare drug costs and costs for purchasing drugs through a person's individual insurance plan are already significantly reduced, purchasing drugs through Trump RX is not likely to result in a significant savings for average Americans on the cost of their prescriptions. Since Pfizer is the only pharmaceutical company participating in the deal, pain relievers such as Tylenol, known generically as acetaminophen, will not be eligible for a price reduction. Sharing the podium with Trump last week, Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, quote, "It will be a cold day in hell when those bastards at Johnson & Johnson, you know the guys that make Tylenol, get a deal like the one we gave to Pfizer. Johnson & Johnson turned me down for a consulting gig several years ago because of my stance against vaccinations, and now that I'm calling the shots, they're getting nada. You hear me? Nada out of me." End quote. Some of the drugs that are available on the Trump RX website include, but are not limited to, hydroxychloroquine for treatment of symptoms related to COVID-19, and bleach tablets containing calcium hypochlorite will also be available for the treatment of symptoms related to COVID-19. According to RFK Jr., the formulary used in bleach tablets fulfills the FDA's daily requirement for calcium. Horse tranquilizers, or xylazine, will also be available to treat people with migraine headaches and for those who suffer from rheumatoid arthritis. Various hair dyes and Botox may be discounted as well. RFK Jr. said that he has scientists at the CDC working round the clock to find a drug that will make men immortal and can bring them back from the dead. Kennedy said, quote, "Death does not have to be inevitable. It's about time we found a cure for death." End quote.
Well, we've reached our destination. We'll be back next week to pick you up for yet another journey to and from the Conflation Station.